Welcome to This Explainer, where we're diving headfirst into what is literally the most concrete, unresolved engineering mystery of the ancient world. Today, we're heading to the Beqaa Valley in modern-day Lebanon to look at a site that completely, and I mean completely, defies our understanding of ancient construction. We aren't dealing in interpretations here. No myths. We're just looking at physical objects that can be weighed, measured, and compared against everything we actually know about human capability. Okay, let's just kick things off with a single, undeniable number. 800. 800 tons. That is the staggering weight of the absolute smallest of three stones in what's known as the Baalbek Trilithon. We're talking about megalithic blocks of solid limestone, roughly 19 meters long, sitting a full 7 meters above the ground. And they're fitted together so perfectly that the gap between them is less than half a millimeter. And the craziest part? There is absolutely zero historical explanation for how they got there. To put that physical math into a really visceral perspective, just one of these Trilithon stones weighs significantly more than a fully loaded Airbus A380 passenger jet at its maximum takeoff weight. Seriously, picture a massive A380 jet and then just stack a few Abrams battle tanks right on top of it. That is the weight ancient builders were moving around. No steel, no combustion engines, and no documented method to explain any of it. So we are going to break down this impossible engineering puzzle step by step today like true investigators. 1. The undeniable physical math. 2. The Roman construction hypothesis. 3. The engineering scale gap. 4. The pre-Roman stratigraphic mystery. And finally, 5. The stone that waits. Starting right off with Section 1. The undeniable physical math. The undeniable numbers. Let's frame this problem in modern terms, right? The world's absolute largest modern mobile crane can lift about 3,000 tons. But here is the massive catch. That crane needs a perfectly flat, heavily reinforced concrete surface and completely ideal rigging conditions to pull that off. Those conditions simply do not exist at the uneven Baalbek site. Yet thousands of years ago, builders somehow transported these mind-blowing weights across a 900-meter uneven rocky path from the quarry and then casually hoisted them 7 meters into the air. The sheer physical reality of the Trilithon honestly leaves modern engineers just scratching their heads. It's a real, present-tense engineering gap. But as impossible as the Trilithon seems, well, just wait until we talk about what's still sitting 900 meters away down in the quarry. We are gonna get to that for sure. But first, we need to address who mainstream archaeology actually says built all of this. Which brings us to Section 2, the Roman construction hypothesis, the mainstream position. Now, the mainstream and highly respected archaeological consensus is that the Romans built this megalithic platform. They built it as the massive foundation for the temple of Jupiter Baal. And look, we've got to be intellectually honest here. The Romans were absolutely extraordinary engineers. Their achievements at this site are undeniable. I mean, they built an enormous 135 by 113 meter great court, a 13 meter high temple podium, a huge monumental staircase of 27 steps, and they even imported 20 meter tall solid granite columns all the way from Egypt. The Roman work sitting on top of those megaliths is unquestionably brilliant. So let's look at how this aligns with their known construction methods. Roman engineers routinely used earthen ramps, heavy timber sledges, and massive wooden capstans to successfully move enormous weights. We know for a fact they moved the 455-ton Lapis Niger obelisk base in Rome using exactly these techniques. They were absolute masters of logistics, using thousands of workers, incredibly thick ropes, and ingenious friction-reducing methods to physically build their empire. But here is the crucial point. We know exactly how the Romans built big things. But we have to critically ask ourselves if these historically proven techniques actually work when you scale them up to the unprecedented weights we find at Baalbek. Basically, does moving 400 tons mean you can automatically just move 800 or 1,000 tons? Let's dig into that in Section 3, the engineering scale gap, the problem with scaling. When we actually sit down and crunch the numbers, a glaring scale gap emerges. Think about Stonehenge. The heaviest upright sarsen stones there are only about 25 to 50 tons. The largest confirmed Roman stones, around 450 tons. But the Baalbek Trilithon sits at a mind-boggling 800 to 1,000 tons. This isn't just a minor incremental step up, it is an entirely different class of engineering challenge. The physics and the math just don't scale linearly. Take transport, for example. Moving just one 800-ton block on timber rollers isn't simply a matter of, adding a few more ropes and some extra guys. It would require the sustained, perfectly synchronized pulling force of 3,000 to 4,000 workers. Try to just picture the organizational infrastructure required to get 4,000 people to pull a single load at the exact same time on uneven terrain without the wooden rollers immediately sinking into the earth and being crushed. And then, of course, there's the lifting aspect. To avoid building a completely impossibly massive earthen ramp, some engineers have proposed a lever and crib system. You basically lever one end up, slide timber underneath, and repeat on the other side. It's a really clever idea in theory, but here's the reality check. Lifting without ramps using this lever and crib system has never ever been successfully demonstrated by modern experimental archaeology at the 800-ton scale. The levers would need to be the size of redwood trees, and the fulcrums would literally just be crushed to powder under the weight. Furthermore, we have to talk about the anomaly of Roman silence. The Romans documented everything. The Pantheon, the Pont du Gard, their massive aqueducts, they wrote it all down, they bragged about it. Yet, despite heavily documenting all their other engineering feats, there is absolutely zero mention of this, which would be their greatest theoretical achievement by far, anywhere in their records. No historian, no inscription, no manual mentions laying the Baalbek platform. Not a peep. This total documentary silence, combined with the extreme engineering gap between what's been proven possible and what Baalbek required, is a very real problem. It leads a lot of researchers to look deeper, literally beneath the Roman temple, to see what else might be hiding down there in the dirt. And that brings us to Section 4, the pre-Roman stratigraphic mystery, the pre-Roman evidence. Excavations at the site reveal a timeline stretching all the way back to the Bronze Age in the 3rd millennium BC. Because of this, many researchers argue that the megalithic platform completely predates the Roman temple. They point to the distinct use of uncut, heavily weathered megalithic blocks on the bottom layers, which stands in stark contrast to the standard, precisely cut ashlar masonry the Romans clearly used on top. But the exact placement of the platform's construction on this historical timeline, it remains a total blank space. There's no organic material underneath to carbon date, and no inscriptions carved into the big stones. Because that timeline is totally blank, local traditions have naturally rushed in to fill the void. For centuries, local legends have attributed the site to pre-flood giants, or to the biblical king Nimrod. Now obviously, we aren't saying giants built it, but this is a deeply telling data point. It shows us that later civilizations, looking up at these huge stones, simply couldn't comprehend or replicate the feat. They had to attribute it to the supernatural because it totally exceeded their categories of human capability. We really must maintain the honest position of an engineer here and just admit, we simply don't know who built it or exactly when. Which brings us to the single most staggering piece of evidence left behind, the ultimate proof that something truly unfathomable was happening here before it was abruptly stopped. Let's wrap things up with Section 5, the stone that waits, an interrupted project. Leaving the main temple platform, we travel about 900 meters away to the ancient limestone quarry. And there, back in 2014, a team from the German Archaeological Institute uncovered a block that completely shatters everything we thought we knew about ancient capabilities. It weighs a mind-bending 1,650 tons. Known as the Stone of the South, it is officially the largest worked stone block ever found anywhere on Earth. And the wildest part? This wasn't just some rough experiment. It was a stone being actively shaped and prepared for transport. But the project stopped abruptly. Whoever was working on it literally just dropped their tools, leaving this massive 1,650-ton masterpiece partially attached to the bedrock. And it has just sat there, totally undisturbed, for over 2 millennia. Through the rise and fall of empires, through massive wars, through changing climates, the stone hasn't moved a single inch. It rests there today as the largest silent question in the ancient world. Someone cut it. Someone clearly had a plan for it. So what kind of monumental project demands a 1,650-ton stone? And more importantly, what colossal event was so sudden and so final that it interrupted it forever? It just lies there in the earth, waiting for an answer that may never come. And honestly, that is what a genuine, incredible mystery looks like. I hope this deep dive into the physical reality of Baalbek sparked your curiosity. Keep questioning the past, and I'll see you in the next explainer.